Captain Jake Morrison stared at his coffee mug like it held the secrets of the universe, which, considering it was his 6th cup this morning and they hadn't even reached Nexus Station yet, it probably did. The USS Harmony hummed around him, all shiny diplomatic paint and peacekeeping sensors, because apparently humanity's first real shot at joining the Galactic Council required looking respectable. "Captain," Ambassador Lisa Park chirped from across the bridge, practically bouncing in her seat. "Isn't this exciting? First contact with 3 different species, all at once. Think of the cultural exchange possibilities." Jake took another sip of coffee. Lisa had been this enthusiastic since launch day. He was starting to suspect she'd been replaced by a very optimistic robot. "Yeah, thrilling," he muttered. "Hey, Wrench, how's our morale equipment doing in Cargo Bay 3? Chief Engineer Tommy Rodriguez looked up from his tablet, grinning. "Mr. Whiskers is adapting well to zero-G. Though he did figure out how to open the food dispensers. Little guy's been living like a king." "Mr. Whiskers." Lisa blinked. "I thought we agreed no unauthorized biological samples on this mission." "Technically," Jake said, "he's not unauthorized. I authorized him. Crew morale is part of ship operations. He's a cat. He's a very important cat." The truth was, Jake had smuggled Mr. Whiskers aboard because honestly, facing alien diplomats was stressful enough without giving up the one thing that actually relaxed his crew. The orange tabby had been the ship's unofficial mascot since their shakedown cruise, and Jake wasn't about to explain to command why their suicide rates went up after they banned pets. "Approaching Nexus Station," reported Navigation Officer Kim Santos. "Holy space junk, that thing is huge." Through the view screen, Nexus Station looked like someone had taken a dozen different architectural styles and welded them together during a particularly creative fever dream. Crystalline spires jutted out from metallic spheres, connected by organic-looking tubes that pulsed with bioluminescent light. 3 species, 3 different ideas about construction, Wrench observed. "This should be fun to dock with." "Incoming transmission," announced Communications Officer Dave Walsh. "Multiple sources." The main screen split into 3 sections. Jake immediately understood why first contact protocols existed. The left screen showed what looked like a cross between a hawk and a very angry general. Sharp golden eyes, metallic feathers, and enough metals to sink a shuttlecraft. Commander Vexstar of the Kithara military, according to Jake's briefing files. The middle screen displayed something that could charitably be described as a sentient bowl of purple jello with eye stalks. Scientist Gloop of the Zephyrian Research Collective, who apparently communicated through controlled vibrations in their gelatinous mass. The right screen featured an insectoid creature, with way too many arms and the kind of compound eyes that suggested it could see into your soul. Diplomat quarks of the Chitani hive states, whose species took everything literally. Everything. "Human vessel," Vexstar squawked. "You will dock at Bay 17. Security protocols are in effect." "Greetings, carbon-based entities," Gloop burbled. "We anticipate productive data exchange regarding your species' integration parameters." "Welcome to Nexus Station," Quarks clicked, each word precisely enunciated. "I have prepared 17 different greeting ceremonies based on your cultural databases. Which would you prefer?" Jake looked at Lisa, who was practically vibrating with diplomatic excitement. "Ambassador, you're up." "Thank you all for this warm welcome," Lisa began, her smile bright enough to power the station. "We're honored to—" A soft meowing sound came through the comm system. All 3 alien faces froze. "What?" Vexstar said slowly. "Was that biological audio emission?" Jake sighed. "That would be our morale officer." "Morale officer?" Gloop's eye stalks swiveled. "We detect no additional life signs registered on your manifest." "Well," Jake said, "that's because our morale officer is a cat." The silence that followed was the kind of silence that preceded either diplomatic breakthroughs or intergalactic incidents. Jake was betting on the incident. 2 hours later, Jake sat in Nexus Station's main conference room, watching 3 alien species try to process the concept of pets, while Mr. Whiskers systematically ignored all of them from his perch on the table. "Let me understand this correctly," Vexter said, his feathers ruffling with what Jake assumed with confusion. "You brought a predatory mammal aboard your vessel to improve psychological states?" "That's right," Lisa nodded enthusiastically. "Studies show that interacting with animals reduces stress hormones and increases productivity." "But it serves no functional purpose," Gloop burbled. One eye stalk focused intently on Mr. Whiskers, who was now grooming his paw with the kind of focus usually reserved for nuclear disarmament treaties. "It consumes resources. It produces waste. It cannot operate machinery or process data." "Well, no," Jake admitted. "But he's excellent at knocking things off tables and judging people." As if summoned by the comment, Mr. Whiskers stood up, stretched, and deliberately pushed Quark's ceremonial water glass off the table. It hit the floor with a satisfying crash. Fascinating, Quark's clicked, all four arms taking notes simultaneously. Is this a territorial display? A dominance assertion? Should I respond with my own territorial display? No, Jake said quickly. That's just what cats do. It's normal cat behavior. Normal, Quarks repeated, writing this down with concerning enthusiasm. And you find this behavior pleasant? It's not about pleasant, Wrench explained, trying to be helpful. It's about companionship, emotional support, feelings. The three aliens exchanged what Jake was pretty sure were worried looks. Your species makes tactical decisions based on emotional responses to non-functional biological units? Vexstar's voice climbed an octave. How did you survive your evolutionary period? Barely, Jake muttered into his coffee. Mr. Whiskers, apparently bored with the philosophical discussion, hopped down from the table and began exploring the conference room. Within 30 seconds, he'd managed to activate 3 different control panels, trigger what sounded like a fire alarm, and somehow turn the artificial gravity down by 15%. Security breach, Vexstar squawked, reaching for what Jake really hoped was a communication device and not a weapon. Anomalous system interactions detected. Gloop vibrated urgently. The biological unit appears to interface with our technology through unknown mechanisms. I must ask the creature about its intentions, Quarks announced, bending down to address Mr. Whiskers directly. Greetings, small predator. I am Diplomat Quarks. What are your diplomatic objectives? Mr. Whiskers looked up at the giant insect, meowed once and rubbed against Quark's leg. He's marking me, Quark said in wonder. Is this a treaty negotiation? Am I being claimed as territory? No, he likes you, Lisa explained. That's how cats show affection. Affection, all 3 aliens repeated in unison, like they were trying to decode an ancient alien language. That's when the red alert klaxon started blaring. The conference room's main display lit up with tactical information that made Jake's stomach drop into his boots. Dozens of ships, all black and angular, and very clearly not here for the diplomatic reception. Devourer fleet detected, the station's AI announced with the kind of calm that suggested impending doom. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Oh, perfect, Jake said. Our first diplomatic meeting and the galaxy's biggest nightmare decides to crash the party. Vexstar was already on his feet, barking orders into his communicator. Gloop had shifted into what Jake assumed was a combat configuration, which mostly involved becoming more purple and agitated. Quarks was still staring at Mr. Whiskers in fascination. Diplomat Quarks, Jake called. We might want to focus on the impending invasion, but the small predator appears to be completely unconcerned about the threat, Quarks observed. Is this a strategic response? Does your species possess information about devourer weaknesses? Mr. Whiskers had indeed settled down for a nap right in the middle of the crisis, because apparently intergalactic warfare wasn't nearly as interesting as that spot of sunlight coming through the viewport. No, Jake sighed, scooping up the cat. He's just a cat, and right now we need to figure out how to keep this station from becoming space debris. But as they rushed toward the command center, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that Mr. Whiskers was paying a lot more attention to those tactical displays than any normal cat should. The command center looked like someone had shaken a snow globe full of panic and flashing lights. Officers from 3 different species rushed around, shouting orders in languages that sounded like everything from angry birds to malfunctioning garbage disposals. Shields are down to 60%. Reported a Kythara officer, his feathers standing on end. Their weapons are punching through our defenses like tissue paper. Defensive matrix optimization failing, burbled a Zephyrian technician, her purple mass quivering with stress. Devourer ships adapt to our countermeasures within 2.3 seconds of implementation. Jake set Mr. Whiskers down and immediately regretted it. The cat took one look at the chaos and decided this was the perfect time to explore. Before anyone could stop him, he'd wandered over to a massive quantum computer core that was apparently running the station's defensive calculations. Someone grab the cat, Vexstar squawked. That's a restricted area. Mr. Whiskers, get back here, Jake called. But the orange tabby was already investigating the swirling patterns of light inside the quantum matrix. To everyone's horror, he reached out one paw and touched the containment field. Nothing exploded, which, according to Jake's limited understanding of quantum physics, was either very good or very, very bad. Impossible. Gloop vibrated, all eye stalks focused on the display. The quantum field should have rejected any biological matter. How is the feline maintaining coherent interaction with a probability matrix? Maybe because he doesn't know he's not supposed to, Wrench suggested, pulling up the technical readouts. Look at this. The quantum calculations are actually stabilizing. On the tactical display, something strange was happening. The Devourer ships, which had been systematically dismantling the station's defenses with ruthless efficiency, suddenly seemed to be making random course corrections. "The Earth attack pattern is shifting," Vexstar observed, his military training overriding his confusion about cats. "Vector changes appear. Chaotic." Mr. Whiskers, meanwhile, had apparently decided the quantum computer was the galaxy's most expensive cat toy. He was batting at the light patterns, chasing probability waves with the kind of focused intensity usually reserved for laser pointers and suspicious cardboard boxes. "Wait," Lisa said, studying the tactical readout. "Every time Mr. Whiskers swipes at the quantum field, those Devourer ships change course. It's like he's redirecting their targeting systems?" "That's scientifically impossible," Gloop protested. "Feline neural patterns cannot interface with quantum probability matrices. The biological complexity requirements alone—" "Tell that to the cat," Jake interrupted, watching as Mr. Whiskers pounced on a particularly bright quantum fluctuation. On the display, an entire squadron of Devourer ships suddenly veered off course and crashed into each other. "By the 7 moons of Kythara," Vexstar breathed. "The furry tactical advisor just eliminated 12 enemy vessels." "He's not a tactical advisor," Jake protested weakly. "He's just a cat who likes shiny things." But even as he said it, Jake noticed something that made his coffee-deprived brain sit up and take notice. Mr. Whiskers wasn't just randomly playing with the quantum field. He was watching the tactical display, then deliberately targeting specific light patterns that corresponded to enemy ship formations. Guys," Wrench said, his voice climbing an octave. "I think our morale officer just figured out how to hack Devourer navigation systems using nothing but cat reflexes and quantum entanglement." A massive explosion lit up the view screen as another wave of Devourer ships found themselves flying in completely wrong directions, apparently confused by whatever Mr. Whiskers was doing to their guidance systems. "This is unprecedented," Quarks clicked, taking notes so fast his arms were a blur. "The small predator appears to be conducting asymmetric warfare through intuitive quantum manipulation. Should I declare him a military genius or a natural disaster?" "Why not both?" Jake suggested, watching as his ship's cat casually rewrote the laws of space combat by treating a quantum computer like the world's most expensive feather wand. The station's shields stabilized. The Devourer fleet was in complete disarray, and Mr. Whiskers, satisfied with his work, curled up next to the quantum core and began purring. The purring made the quantum field resonate in harmonious frequencies that apparently turned the station's weapons systems into instruments of beautiful, chaotic destruction. "I'm starting to understand," Vexstar said slowly, "why your species brought a morale officer to a diplomatic mission." "Actually," Jake admitted, "we just brought him because he's cute and makes people happy." The 3 aliens stared at him with the kind of expression usually reserved for watching someone accidentally solve faster-than-light travel while trying to make a sandwich. Over the next 6 hours, Jake watched his understanding of reality crumble like a stale cookie. Mr. Whiskers had apparently decided that the command center was his new favorite napping spot, which would have been adorable if not for the fact that his presence somehow turned Nexus Station into the most effective war machine in galactic history. "Phase 2 of the Devourer assault incoming," announced Lieutenant Santos from her position at the tactical station. 67 ships approaching from Vector 7 Mark IV. Mr. Whiskers opened one green eye, studied the tactical display for exactly 3 seconds, then walked over to a secondary control panel and sat on it. The panel immediately lit up with what looked like random quantum fluctuations. "Movement detected in Sector 12, Vexstar reported, his voice tight with concentration. "Devourer formation is... Wait. They're breaking off their attack run. They're repositioning to... No, that doesn't make tactical sense." Jake watched the display as the enemy ships suddenly arranged themselves in a perfect line, like they were forming up for a parade instead of an assault. "That's weird. Why would they do that?" "Because," Wrench said slowly, staring at his engineering readouts, "they're now perfectly aligned for our particle cannon array. It's like they've arranged themselves to be sitting ducks." "Fire all batteries," Vexstar ordered. The resulting barrage eliminated 43 Devourer ships in under 30 seconds. Mr. Whiskers yawned, stretched, and padded over to a different console. This time he knocked a stylus off the desk and chased it under the quantum field generator. "Sir," reported the Zephyrian technician, her purple mass practically vibrating with excitement, "the feline has somehow recalibrated our sensor array to detect Devourer stealth technology. We're seeing 17 cloaked ships that were completely invisible 10 seconds ago." "That's impossible," Gloop burbled from their position at the science station. Devourer's stealth fields operate on quantum phase variance principles that require specialized detection equipment we don't possess. Jake looked down at Mr. Whiskers, who was now batting at dust motes in the air with the kind of focused intensity that suggested he was tracking invisible prey. Unless you're a predator evolved to hunt things that don't want to be found. Are you suggesting? Corix clicked. All four arms paused over their note-taking. That feline hunting instincts translate to detecting quantum-masked vessels? I'm suggesting, Jake said, watching as Mr. Whiskers suddenly pounced at apparently empty space, triggering a weapons lock on one of the previously invisible ships, that we've been thinking about this all wrong. We're trying to fight the Devourers like a military engagement. But cats don't fight. They hunt. Vextar's feathers ruffled as another wave of enemy ships fell victim to what could only be described as strategic feline mischief. Elaborate on this hunting theory, Captain Morrison. Look at what he's doing, Jake pointed as Mr. Whiskers stalked across the command center with his belly low to the ground. He's not responding to our tactical displays or their ship formations. He's reading their behavior patterns. Predator versus prey instincts. As if to prove Jake's point, Mr. Whiskers suddenly stopped mid-stalk and stared intently at a section of empty space on the main view screen. His pupils dilated, his tail twitched once, and he made that chattering sound cats do when they see birds outside a window. Translate incoming, announced the communications officer. It's from the Devourer fleet commander. The main screen flickered to show something that looked like a mechanical spider crossed with a nightmare. When it spoke, its voice was the sound of metal grinding against metal. A known biological weapon, the Devourer commander rasped. Cease your psychological warfare immediately. Our navigational systems are experiencing unprecedented chaos patterns. Our stealth technology is compromised by incomprehensible detection methods. What manner of advanced combat AI are you employing? Jake looked at Mr. Whiskers, who had lost interest in the Devourer commander and was now grooming his left paw with the kind of thorough attention that suggested this was the most important task in the galaxy. That would be Admiral Whiskers, Jake said solemnly. Our top strategic advisor. Impossible, the Devourer commander snarled. Our intelligence reports indicate you brought a domesticated biological unit for morale purposes. There is no Admiral Whiskers in your military hierarchy. Well, Vextar interjected, apparently getting into the spirit of things. There is now. Admiral Whiskers, would you care to demonstrate your tactical capabilities? Mr. Whiskers looked up at the screen, studied the Devourer commander for a moment, then deliberately knocked Vextar's ceremonial war helm off the command console. It clattered to the floor with a sound like thunder. On the tactical display, the entire Devourer fleet suddenly scattered in 17 different directions, apparently interpreting the helmet crash as some kind of sonic weapon deployment. By the eternal circuits, the Devourer commander gasped. What was that devastating acoustic assault? Our ship's hull resonance is fluctuating wildly. That was Admiral Whiskers expressing his tactical opinion of your invasion, Lisa said with diplomatic smoothness. I believe the translation would be, your battle formation is inadequate, and you should feel bad about it. Bloop's eye stalks were swiveling frantically between Mr. Whiskers and the scientific readouts. This is unprecedented. The feline appears to be conducting multi-dimensional strategic analysis through behavioral pattern recognition that our most advanced computers cannot replicate. It's not advanced computing, Jake realized, watching as Mr. Whiskers curled up in a patch of warm sunlight streaming through the viewport. It's the opposite. The Devourers are machines. They think like machines. They expect logical, predictable responses. But cats are pure chaos engines. They're biological random number generators, with hunting instincts. Mr. Whiskers proved this point by suddenly springing to his feet and racing across the command center for no apparent reason, triggering 3 different sensor arrays and somehow causing the station's weapons to lock onto a Devourer ship that was trying to sneak up from behind a moon. The small predator has identified an ambush formation that our tactical computers missed, Corix observed, scribbling notes furiously. How did it detect deception patterns in enemy movement? Because that's what cats do, Wrench laughed, pulling up the engineering data. They detect when something's trying to sneak up on them. They've been doing it for thousands of years. We just gave them the galaxy's most expensive set of sensors to do it with. The Devourer commander was making sounds like a broken factory machine. This is unacceptable. Our tactical algorithms cannot compensate for random chaos variables. We demand you remove the biological weapon from the engagement zone. Counteroffer, Jake said, scratching Mr. Whiskers behind the ears as the cat purred and somehow turned the station's defensive shields into a disco ball of destructive energy. How about you surrender to Admiral Whiskers? I think he's getting bored with this fight, and you really don't want to see what happens when he starts playing with your ships like they're toy mice. The Devourer commander's response was to cut communications and apparently call for backup, because 30 minutes later, the largest ship Jake had ever seen dropped out of hyperspace like a metal mountain with anger management issues. Devourer mothership detected, Vexstar announced, his voice hitting notes that Jake was pretty sure weren't possible for his species. Length, 15 kilometers. Width, 8 kilometers. Weapons signatures indicate it could crack a planet like an egg. The fleet is regrouping around the mothership, reported Santos, her hands dancing over the tactical controls. All remaining vessels are forming a perfect sphere formation. It's like they're preparing for some kind of coordinated final assault. Mr. Whiskers, who had been napping through the tactical briefing, suddenly opened both eyes and stared at the main display with the kind of intense focus he usually reserved for birds outside windows and suspicious paper bags. The Admiral appears concerned, Quarix observed, noting Mr. Whiskers' sudden alertness. Is this a tactical assessment of the enemy's capabilities? No, Jake said slowly, watching as his cat's pupils dilated to maximum hunting mode. That's the look he gets when he sees something he really wants to catch. The mothership began broadcasting on all frequencies with a voice like grinding gears and existential dread. Biological chaos weapon operators, you have disrupted our conquest algorithms for the final time. The Devourer Prime has been awakened. Prepare for systematic elimination of all random variables. Devourer Prime? Gloop burbled nervously. Our databases indicate that's their central command intelligence. A quantum mechanical artificial intelligence that's been calculating optimal conquest strategies for over 10,000 years. Perfect, Jake muttered. So we're facing the galaxy's most advanced strategic computer, and our secret weapon is a cat who thinks cardboard boxes are the height of defensive architecture. Mr. Whiskers proved Jake's point by immediately abandoning his post at the quantum computer and disappearing into a maintenance shaft, because apparently now was the perfect time for exploring. Where is he going? Vexstar demanded. We need the biological chaos weapon at the tactical station. He's not a weapon, Jake protested, then paused as multiple systems throughout the station began activating in sequence. He's just curious about, oh no. On the engineering display, Wrench was tracking Mr. Whiskers' progress through the station's internal systems. The cat was following maintenance conduits with the kind of purposeful exploration that suggested he'd found something interesting. He's heading for the main computer core, Wrench reported. The big one. Not just the quantum tactical system, but the central processing unit that runs the entire station. That's impossible, Gloop vibrated frantically. The main core is protected by 17 different security protocols. No biological entity could access it without proper authorization codes. A soft meowing sound echoed through the command center's speakers, followed by what sounded like purring mixed with the gentle hum of a computer system being very thoroughly investigated by a curious cat. Authorization codes accepted, announced the station's AI in a voice that now had a distinctly feline undertone. Admiral Whiskers has been granted full administrative access to all station systems. Initiating Random Tactical Protocol 77 Whiskers. What's Random Tactical Protocol 77 Whiskers? Jake asked, with the kind of dread usually reserved for tax audits and surprise dental procedures. Unknown protocol, the AI purred, generating new strategic parameters based on optimal chaos distribution and maximum curiosity satisfaction. Please stand by while I knock all enemy ships off the tactical display. The mothership fired its primary weapon, a beam of pure destructive energy that should have vaporized Nexus Station and everyone on it. Instead, it hit what appeared to be a shimmering field of pure randomness that scattered the energy in 17 different directions, most of which somehow redirected back toward the Devourer fleet. Impossible! The Devourer Prime's voice crackled across the communications array. Our weapons cannot be randomly redirected. Physics does not operate on chaos principles. You've never met a cat, have you? Jake asked conversationally. The station's weapons systems began firing in patterns that defied every principle of military strategy Jake had ever learned. Instead of focusing fire on critical targets, they seemed to be shooting at completely random locations. But somehow, every shot either hit a vital enemy system or ricocheted off space debris to hit 3 other ships. This is magnificent, Vexstar breathed, watching as the Devourer fleet tried desperately to maintain formation while apparently being attacked by the physical manifestation of Murphy's Law. The chaos weapon has turned our defensive systems into instruments of beautiful, unpredictable destruction. Mr. Whiskers' purring grew louder through the station speakers, and suddenly every light on Nexus Station began blinking in random patterns. The effect was hypnotically chaotic, like a disco designed by someone having a seizure. Our optical sensors are overloading, the Devourer Prime reported, its voice now carrying undertones of what Jake could only describe as mechanical panic. The random light patterns are creating computational paradoxes in our targeting systems. That's because you're trying to analyze a cat's idea of pretty lights, Lissa explained helpfully. There's no pattern to analyze, he just likes the way they blink. The mothership attempted a different strategy, launching thousands of small fighter craft in a coordinated swarm attack. It was a brilliant tactical maneuver that should have overwhelmed any defense system. Mr. Whiskers responded by somehow turning the station's tractor beam arrays into the galaxy's largest laser pointer. The result was exactly what anyone who'd ever owned a cat would have predicted. Thousands of Devourer fighters suddenly found themselves chasing tiny red dots in completely random directions, their pilots apparently unable to resist the primal urge to catch the moving light. "This is impossible!" the Devourer Prime wailed, as its entire fleet began chasing laser dots like a massive swarm of mechanical kittens. "Our pilots are trained military AIs. They should not be susceptible to primitive hunting response protocols." "Your pilots are artificial intelligences," Gloop observed, their scientific mind apparently fascinated despite the mortal peril. "They're programmed to pursue targets that exhibit specific movement patterns. The laser point triggers their chase subroutines." "But we're not programmed to chase small lights," the Devourer Prime protested. "You are now," Jake said, watching as the mothership itself began slowly turning to follow a particularly bright laser dot that was dancing across its hull. "Welcome to the wonderful world of cat logic, where everything that moves must be caught and everything that doesn't move should be knocked over." The mighty Devourer mothership, terror of 1,000 worlds, began spinning in place as it tried to catch a laser pointer dot that Mr. Whiskers was apparently operating from somewhere deep in the station's computer core. "This is humiliating," the Devourer Prime groaned. "We are the galaxy's most feared military force. We have conquered star systems with populations in the trillions. We cannot be defeated by a small mammal with attachment issues." "Counterpoint," Jake said, as the entire Devourer fleet began spinning in increasingly dizzy circles. "You just were." 3 hours later, Jake sat in what used to be the diplomatic conference room, and was now apparently the office of Admiral Whiskers, Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense and Chief Morale Officer. The promotion had been unanimous after the Devourer fleet surrendered by collectively transmitting the message, "We cannot process the chaos variables. Please make the spinning stop." Mr. Whiskers himself was napping in a patch of sunlight, completely oblivious to his new rank and the fact that he had single-handedly revolutionized military strategy across 17 star systems. His tail twitched occasionally, which the Galactic Council's military advisors were now analyzing for strategic significance. "So let me understand this correctly," said High Chancellor Zorth of the Andromedan Federation, whose holographic image flickered above the conference table. "A single Earth feline defeated the Devourer Empire by introducing chaos theory into quantum military dynamics?" "That's the technical explanation," Jake nodded, sipping his coffee while Mr. Whiskers rolled over and presented his belly to the universe. "The simple explanation is that cats are agents of chaos, and apparently chaos is the one thing artificial intelligence can't compute. The implications are staggering," Gloop burbled, their purple mass practically vibrating with excitement. "We've spent millennia developing increasingly sophisticated strategic algorithms, when the optimal approach was apparently to introduce random biological variables into our tactical systems." Vexstar ruffled his feathers thoughtfully. "My military academy will need to completely revise its curriculum. How does one teach strategic feline operations to species that don't have cats?" "That's the beautiful part," Lisa beamed, her diplomatic enthusiasm now backed by actual results. "Every species has some equivalent. Some creature that evolved to be unpredictable, curious, and slightly destructive. Earth cats are just the most refined example." "Which brings us to the formal proposal," announced Chancellor Zorth. "The Galactic Council has voted unanimously to implement the Whiskers Protocol across all member fleets. Every military vessel will be required to carry a designated chaos animal for strategic purposes." Jake nearly choked on his coffee. "You're going to militarize pets?" "We're going to democratize chaos," Quarks corrected, clicking his mandibles with what Jake had learned to recognize as amusement. "The Chitani have already selected our battle crickets. Their jumping patterns appear to confuse enemy targeting systems quite effectively. The Kithara are implementing combat ferrets," Vextra added proudly. "Small, furry, and absolutely fearless. Perfect for infiltrating enemy systems." "And the Zephyrians?" Jake asked, morbidly curious. "Tactical blobfish," Gloop announced with what passed for enthusiasm in their species. They exist in a state of constant bewilderment, which apparently translates to optimal confusion generation when applied to military scenarios. Jake looked down at Mr. Whiskers, who had woken up just long enough to knock a datapad off the conference table before settling back into his nap. You realize none of these animals will be as effective as cats, right? Cats have had thousands of years to perfect the art of being adorable chaos engines. We're aware, Chancellor Zorth acknowledged, which is why Earth has been granted a special status within the Galactic Council. You are now the official suppliers of strategic feline advisors to any species that request them. We're going to be exporting cats to alien civilizations, Jake said slowly, processing the absurdity of his new reality. Premium battle cats, Vexstar clarified. The Cathara alone have requested 17 Admiral-level felines for our core fleet operations. The Andromedan military wants to know if you have any cats that specialize in stealth operations, Chancellor Zorth added. Something that can infiltrate enemy systems without being detected. Jake thought about every cat he'd ever known, and their supernatural ability to appear in impossible places. Oh, we've got plenty of those. Though I should warn you, stealth cats also tend to be the ones that knock over the most expensive equipment. Acceptable casualties, the Chancellor declared. The Devourer's surrender has proven that strategic chaos generation is more effective than any conventional weapon system. Mr. Whiskers chose that moment to stretch, yawn, and accidentally activate 3 different holographic displays with his paws. The displays immediately began showing tactical simulations of cat-based warfare scenarios, complete with animated felines conducting military operations against bewildered enemy forces. The Admiral appears to approve of our strategic planning, Corix observed, taking notes as Mr. Whiskers knocked a stylus into the holographic display and somehow improved the battle simulation's effectiveness by 30%. There is one concern, Gloop mentioned, their eye stalks swiveling nervously. Our xenobiologists are worried about the long-term effects of introducing Earth felines into alien ecosystems. What if they adapt too well to their new environments? Jake considered this for exactly 3 seconds before images of cats conquering alien worlds through the sheer power of being irresistibly adorable filled his mind. You know what? That sounds like a problem for future generations to deal with. Right now, we've got a galaxy to defend, and apparently the most effective military strategy in known space involves belly rubs and catnip. Speaking of which, Lisa added, the Galactic Council has also approved the construction of the first interspecies military academy on Earth. All member species will send their finest officers to study advanced chaos theory and applied feline tactics. We're going to have alien military officers learning how to work with cats, Jake mused. This is either the beginning of a golden age of peace or the most elaborate practical joke in galactic history. Mr. Whiskers opened one green eye, looked directly at Jake, and made a sound that was somewhere between a purr and a chirp. It was the same sound he made when he was particularly pleased with himself after knocking something breakable off a high shelf. I think, Jake said, scratching his newly promoted admiral behind the ears, it's probably both. 6 months later, reports began filtering in from across the galaxy. The Chitani battle crickets had successfully confused 3 different pirate fleets into surrendering by hopping in patterns that overloaded their navigation computers. The Klakara combat ferrets had infiltrated a rebel base, and somehow convinced the entire command structure to abandon their posts in favor of playing with small, furry invaders. The Zephyrian tactical blobfish had achieved victory against a smuggling operation, simply by existing in such a state of bewildered confusion that the criminals had turned themselves in rather than try to figure out what was happening. But none of them were quite as effective as the cats. Earth's strategic feline export program became the most successful interspecies trade initiative in galactic history. Every species wanted cats. Every military wanted admiral-level tactical advisors who could defeat enemy fleets by napping in the right spot and occasionally knocking things over. And somewhere in the depths of space, the scattered remnants of the Devourer fleet drifted aimlessly, their computers still trying to calculate the optimal response to a small orange tabby who had looked at their invasion plans and decided they needed to be knocked off the table. The final report from the Galactic Military Academy's first graduation ceremony noted that while interspecies cooperation had improved dramatically, the Academy's furniture replacement budget had increased by approximately 4,000%. It was considered an acceptable trade-off for galactic peace. Admiral Whiskers was not available for comment, as he was busy with the critically important task of chasing a sunbeam across the Academy's main conference room floor.